Welcome to the SPARK StartHer Podcast, the podcast dedicated to sharing stories that ignite female entrepreneurs into action. I'm your host, Elizabeth Goede, and I'm here to fan the flame of your entrepreneurial spirit. Each week, we bring to you the inspiring stories of women trailblazers from around the world who have sparked change in their industries, powered their ideas into thriving businesses, and pioneered their way to success. So, whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur, a startup enthusiast, or a seasoned business leader, join us as we delve into the journeys of these incredible women whose tales will surely ignite each one of us. My guest today is Cheryl Stelte. Cheryl is a spiritual coach, master healer, speaker, psychic, best-selling author, and the CEO of Star of Divine Light Institute and the Azarius Energy Healing Certification Program. With an impressive 30 years of experience and extensive training in various healing modalities, spiritual leadership, coaching, retreat guiding, shamanism, yoga, meditation, she is dedicated to helping mature women make major breakthroughs and step into their greatest, most peaceful, powerful selves. But Cheryl's journey wasn't always a straight path. 15 years ago, she made a bold move by selling everything, her spiritual interior design business and her house, to embark on a transformative 20-month journey around the world. This experience not only shaped her perspective, but also fueled her passion for empowering others. As a woman entrepreneur, Cheryl has navigated the challenges and triumphs of building a successful business in a field close to her heart. Her story is one of courage, resilience, and the unwavering belief in the power of self-discovery and healing. Cheryl, welcome. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I am thrilled to be here and be a part of your mission through your podcast.
Well, I'm so excited to have you here as well. And gosh, just by reading that introduction and hearing your background, I mean, what an inspirational path you have taken, which was not a straight line, which I'm discovering the more of these that I do, the more that I realize there are very, very few of us that take a straight line path. So let's start at the beginning. So before you sort of sold everything and decided to take off around the world, let's talk a little bit about what you were doing at that point in time. Did you had a long corporate business, or what did you sort of do first before this transformative journey?
I had my own spiritual interior design business, which was so fulfilling for me in many ways. And what I discovered through that business was that not only was my journey, my own personal journey, was about self empowerment and what that means, but also to help empower other women. And so it was never an intention when I started it to start hiring and training women. So that was a huge part of my business, and was part of the fulfillment that I got was not just being of service to my clients, but to help these women who had little or no skills gain skills. And so I ended up creating my own workroom. I did a lot of soft furnishings, custom drapes, and bedding and that sort of thing. And I taught women how to sew. Later on, my accountant said, you don't have the profit margins you need. And I thought, I'm not an expert in the workroom. And so I started then using someone else. It was a local women-owned business. It was actually my daughter's friend's mother that had this business. So I subbed things out to her. And what I did do, though, I kept my all-women paint team going. So I taught women how to paint professionally. And then I ended up with, the paint manager, foreman, who did all the training. It just gave me so much joy to take these women who had so few skills and watch them grow. And everybody wanted to be the expert at cutting it. And I was like, why do you all, like, to them, that was the top skill was to be, really the straight line. And back in those days, color on the walls was in. It was not all light gray or white. It was red and blue and, all the different colors. And
Cheryl, you'll be happy to know that I have colors throughout my whole house. It looks neutral right in this room, but I promise you.
Colors are great. We need some color for sure. And what happened was I didn't realize what I was going through spiritually. I look back on it. I started to enter the dark night of the soul, which is a time for us to unlearn spiritually. And so what I was doing was no longer as fulfilling, and I started to feel lost. And I had hired a coach to help me with my business, to get me that fulfillment, that feeling of fulfillment. And I was very fortunate. It's funny, I just had a conversation with someone yesterday. At some point in my life, and I think, you mentioned this is your journey, and your podcast is very much about self-discovery. Self-discovery is yourself as a business owner. And I had a moment in my interior design business where I had a very successful meeting with a client. I think I, really helped someone. And I caught myself identifying with the glamorous role of being an interior designer. I was identifying with it. And I remember driving my van, and I suddenly thought to myself, wait a minute, Cheryl, you're identifying with this role. It's not who you are. It's not who you are. And so I really made a point of not doing that in the future, that I am still Cheryl. Yes, this is what I do. And I think that's what, has given me the fulfillment that I feel today. I feel high level fulfillment in helping mature women who feel blocked and they don't know how to move forward. But going back to that, I had to unlearn all my ways of mastery. I had mastered something. So there's so many women in corporate America who've had businesses where they've mastered to a certain level. And it's part of our growth spiritually to unlearn and open up to a deeper level of oneself. And so I sold everything, not knowing I was going through this, sold everything and started to travel. And my kids had my second child, my daughter, had just left the house. And I thought I was going to move to Costa Rica. First, I was working with my coach on how could I move to a new level in my business, but nothing was fulfilling. And I traveled a bit and I came back and I couldn't do my business anymore. And I turned away so much work. I had clients, you did my neighbor's kitchen. Will you do my kitchen? Will you come and have a look? And I was putting off these meetings. And then I realized I was meditating. It's like, I can't do this anymore. I don't get the fulfillment. I need the fulfillment. So I sold everything, sold my business, said no to all these people. It was tough. And I traveled and I was on a journey of self-discovery.
Well, I love this idea of going on a journey of self-discovery. And, I think that, a lot of women go through these very particular types of moments. Now, there are other of us that don't quite fit into this exact mold, but, you have women that make a big change when they have children, or when their children go to school, or when their children go off to school, or like with that empty nest type of time. But I would say that your move was pretty dramatic, right? I mean, most people might decide maybe I'm going to go back to the career that I used to have before I had kids, or, maybe I'll move to a smaller place. But the idea of sort of selling everything and taking off on a 20-month journey is a lot bigger endeavor than what most people would. So when you decided to do that, I mean, was there ever any fear that entered into your mind, or was this did you feel at peace by sort of taking that action?
Thank you for asking that question. It was an emotional roller coaster. So I had this inner knowing. I felt very guided internally to leave, and I ended up traveling in Spanish-speaking countries. I didn't speak Spanish. So I went to Central America, every country in South America, and later Africa. But the fear would come up. The fear would absolutely come up, like, what are you doing? This is insane. You know, you don't even speak Spanish. What are you thinking? So the fear would come up, and I would stop myself, and I would sit down and breathe into it with a full belly. So I would allow the fear to just move through me. Fear is fear is fear. It's an emotion. Emotions are designed to be felt. It's energy and motion. So I would allow that to move through me until it was finished. I would feel where it was in my body, and I would just allow it. And then it would be gone, and I would be back into whatever I was doing.
Yeah. I mean, hearing the countries that you went to, because we hadn't really talked about that at all, and knowing that you didn't speak the language. I mean, of course, in Africa, it's really, most people don't realize most countries in Africa actually do speak English.
Yeah.
Not all, but many of them do. But South America, Central America, not so much. I mean, you've got Portuguese and you've got Spanish pretty much throughout there. So when you decided to sort of plot your around the world adventure, how did you decide on the countries that you were going to go to? Because obviously it wasn't based on if you could speak the language. So tell us more about that journey, how you decided on those countries.
Well, I didn't start out deciding to travel. As far
Oh,
as I was concerned, I was moving to Costa Rica because that's where I felt like my real self. I knew there was something happening internally. I was slowing down. When I was in my business, I was often ramped up, going quickly, getting lots done. And so that's what I thought I was doing. But by the time I got there, I realized I've never been so footloose and fancy free. Gee, I've always had this fantasy of living with the Shuar people since I studied shamanism. And so I found the Shuar people in the Amazon jungle in Ecuador, and I sailed from Panama to Colombia and found myself there and got down to the Shuar, and I signed up for a volunteer program, and I lived with the Shuar for 2 months. And so then it just happened. One thing led to another, to another, to another. And I continued to travel and practice my Spanish. And I did some Spanish classes along the way. And it was really learning about other cultures, their way of living, and just watching, observing, participating, living like them. I've lived in huts, and so that's how it happened.
So I just you very casually skipped over the fact that you sailed from Panama to Colombia. And is this like literally you just got a boat while you were down there and you thought, gosh, I'm just gonna go from here and I'll stop wherever I stop? Or yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of like that. I wanted to drive, and it's completely unsafe, and there actually are no roads. There's that little piece of land that goes between the two continents, and there is not a road, and there are many drug lords that live. It's a very, very dangerous jungle. And so I could have flown, but then I found out I could possibly sail, and I had to get a hold of one of the Kuna Indians that live there, and they're in charge of those waters and any trips. So then I met someone who knew someone, and then I talked with this guy. So he arranged there's going to be a boat. So then I had to travel by bus and by foot to this little tiny town. And that's where I met Guillermo, my captain and everybody on the sailboat got seasick except for Guillermo and I ended up having to cook for everybody. And it was quite the experience. And so, yes, I sailed to Colombia, to Cartagena.
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, I've never been to Cartagena, but I would love to go. So we'll have to talk more about that offline. Okay, so tell me, when you were doing all this traveling around and figuring out how to navigate all these situations, I mean, even just, hey, I could fly, I certainly can't walk or drive, but I can fly or take a boat, and then the adventure of even getting the boat. Did you feel like all of these sort of adversities that you were going through were helping build your skills for your business when you got back? Was that sort of part of the intent of doing this, or was it more so really just you were looking for something different in life?
It was completely a journey of self-discovery. And so when I would be on buses,
Mm,
when I would be walking, I was
mm,
meditating. I
mm.
was tuned. I was practicing just really being in the moment. What is my experience? What can I learn about myself through this? So it was, uh, I lived in a higher state of self-awareness, or was at the very least attempting to do that. And I would journal. And my big question was, why am I here?
Sure.
What's my purpose? What is my soul's purpose? And so it was like I was trying to find myself in a deeper way through my environment. And a lot of it was a lot of fun, and I was also in some very scary, precarious situations. Those
Yeah.
happen pretty consistently.
So you go through all these different countries. You end up in Africa. Did you sail to Africa or you flew?
No, I flew. I flew to Africa,
Long way.
and I started out by living with the Maasai, and my mission was to help stop early forced marriage and forced
Mhm.
genital mutilation. So in my travels in South America, I did do some volunteer work, and I even did some interior design consulting. I met some people who started up a hotel or a hostel, and they needed some help finishing things up. So I said, hey, I'll volunteer to help you get the theme you're really looking for, or that sort of thing. And but with the Maasai, I that was my mission, and I also taught English to people who didn't get to finish school, men and women, English and math. And
So I want to go back. So you left your interior design business behind as a form of self-discovery. You're traveling around, but you volunteered to still do that work as part of one of your adventures. And my question to you is, so how did you decide that you wanted to volunteer versus charge for that? And my follow-up to that is, if you still felt the same, did doing the work for free versus doing it paid feel different?
oh, that's such a good question. Why? Because I just wanted to do it out. To me, it's fun. It's fun to consult. And here were these three guys from three different countries who were taking this huge risk. They invested all their savings, they borrowed money. I kind of figured there wasn't a budget, and I didn't care. I'm like, I'm here. I like what you guys are doing. This is really cool. Can I help you out? It didn't feel any different. The fact
Yeah.
the fact that I wasn't being paid. It was I was providing a service, and they were super grateful, and it was fun, and
Yeah. Well,
well,
the reason why I was curious about that is because obviously you sort of left that business behind. So I guess maybe I'm reading into it more than I should, but I was curious if you left that behind because you weren't sort of satisfied in doing that anymore, or and it was interesting that you would pick it back up while you were doing it, which would say to me that that was still sort of a passion area.
yeah, yeah, I would say it was still a passion area, and it still is. I love beauty. I really and I love creating beauty, and I used to kinda judge myself that beauty is sort of fluff,
Hmm.
and really beauty is a very spiritual thing. Beauty can really lift us up, and so I still have a real appreciation for that. I wasn't getting the same level of fulfillment
Right.
through the work I was doing. So with respect to helping those 3 guys out, it was like, well, I can do this in my sleep.
Sure.
It is fun. Did I have a desire to go back to it and continue to do it in that way? I just wanted more. I knew there was something else. And that's where I meet a lot of women who know there's something else for them, but they're not sure what it is. I mean, this topic of purpose is huge.
It is a huge topic. So, so then you continue your volunteerism in Africa. How do you end up back in the United States? How do you end up back, with your business? How does that transition happen?
Well, the market crashed.
Oh,
That was when the market crashed in '09, '08, whenever it was. And so I was liquid. Remember, I sold everything.
yeah.
And I remember making a conscious choice to invest all my money into a variable rate so it would fluctuate. I could have chosen a fixed rate for all my money, and I didn't. And I lost 40% of my investments. And like some people, I withdrew them and I never got it back. And I'm like, okay, so I really need to pick things up again. And I am Canadian. I was living in Canada at the time. Now I'm living in the US. And so it's, what am I going to do? So my journey of self-discovery continued. And the whole time I had a near-death experience in Africa. I almost died going over a 1 or 2,000 foot cliff in Uganda.
Gosh.
And what that did, it showed me, that was my first sign that no, we all should have died in that accident, but there's something important for me to do. I'm not done. And so that knowing continued to propel me forward. And my soul's purpose was always right in front of me. It was my spiritual practices, the work that I had for years done part-time, but the universe was challenging me to move into it full-time and really own it. And it was the hardest step in my life I ever took.
What an incredible moment. So, okay. So when you come back and when you end up back in the United States, I shouldn't say come back because you're Canadian. But when you end up back in the United States, is this the point in which you started the Star of Divining Light Institute, or?
It took me a little while. I started the Star of Divine Light when I moved to the US, but I was in Canada. And so I continued to grow my spiritual business while I was still in Canada. And so it was taking up a great deal of time, and it was becoming more of my main thing. And I was fortunate enough to have another job where I thought, okay, I don't want this to take as much time anymore. So I'm going to subcontract my brother to work for me part-time so he could do all this other stuff. He could be the behind the scenes guy, and I could be the front person, the face person. So that was really serving me. And then I married an American. And so then I immigrated. And so I quit that job completely. And then once I was able to work. So what I did here when I moved here, you can't work and earn money.
Right.
I still had my clients in Canada, which I could do, but I still rented an office for 1 day a week. And I would volunteer. I had met with people on Meetup. I would lead meditations. And so because I just want to do my work in the world. And so I did that until I could get paid. And that's when I wrote my first book, Heal Your Neck Issues and Let Your Throat Chakra Shine, and really embraced all the work I'm meant to be doing. And here I am.
I love that you brought your book back up. I got so distracted by this amazing world tour that you were doing. I totally forgot about the book. And you've released more than one book, correct?
Yes, my second book is Client Magnet, the Coach's Guide to Attract Ideal Clients Through Spiritual Awareness. If you're a coach, if you're any kind of business owner and you're not getting the clients you want or need, it's an excellent book. I've actually helped coaches who weren't having clients, who wanted to get groups going in a short period of time, like really just in a couple months, get your group formed by helping them clear their subconscious blocks that are getting in their way and really attract those people We are all lighthouses. We are here to guide others.
Yeah, absolutely. What great opportunity that comes from the restrictions in the US when you when you come here and you have the, what is it, 6 months or a year where you can't make any money? Is it something like that?
It's a period of time, but COVID hit and really
Oh,
messed up my immigration. I won't go into all the
yeah.
details of that, but here I am, loving it, loving it.
So, what would you say, Cheryl, has been the most difficult thing about having a business as a woman? Because obviously you've had two very different businesses. What would you say? Was there a commonality between the difficult aspect, or was it the same sort of difficulty in both businesses?
I would say the commonality, the main thing, the biggest challenge is that realizing that whatever goes on, whatever we're feeling, if we're feeling imposter syndrome, or we can't do something, or we're struggling, those are all opportunities to grow.
Mm,
Those are all opportunities to grow. And I always say, whenever you take a giant step forward, whatever kept you from doing that will come up. So I look back on my business now. Did I need to just drop everything and travel? No, there was a deeper to what looking back, if I were to do it all over again, I would have explored more deeply who I really am in
mm,
that place through my business. And I
right.
believe that through that self-discovery, I would have grown my business to a whole new level. And that was what was happening. And I wasn't facing my blocks the way I can today.
Hmm,
Right. That was a long time ago. And so the biggest challenge is always our own personal growth. So if we ever feel like giving up, we're not sure what's going on, anything that's getting in the way, it's really looking at the self and going inward. And we need help with that. We
mm,
all, humans need humans. And so to reach out to someone who can help you, who can support you through that, because every challenge is an opportunity for growth. And that's not just in business, that's in relationships, in our health, throughout our lives.
yeah. Yeah, that's really beautifully said of insight, right? And I do think there's a lot of learning that a lot of people can look inside themselves and think, am I really sort of running versus growing, right? So what would you say has been the biggest success of having your own business?
The fulfillment. I get what I want. I get what I want. And to have people, the biggest success right now in this moment, my biggest success, if I can say that, is I'm writing my third book. And it's
Oh,
not an AI book. When I wrote the first two, there was no AI. But uh, I've committed to writing my third book. And again, I noticed after I committed to it, there's some burning sizzling in my belly. What is that about? Oh, here's my stuff again at a deeper level, bit of fear, bit of apprehension, and just facing that and moving into that and feeling that and really owning it, claiming my commitment to myself. And really, it's never really about us. To me,
right.
it's all about the universe moving through us. It's We are all vehicles. We are all vehicles. We are all souls in a human body. And really, it's how the universe wants to move through me now to help other souls. So I accept that. I'm embracing that, and I'm moving forward with it.
I love that so much. That's so beautiful, and obviously we can't wait to hear what your third book is. When it comes out, and you'll have to come back when that happens. So, Cheryl, a lot of us too, when we have our own business, there are things that really surprise us, things that we just never could have identified, right? Before we did it. What would you say has been the biggest surprise for you in your business?
The biggest surprise of my business is how much I love it. I couldn't imagine, I couldn't imagine how much I would love it. And most recently, I've done I've done some podcasts in the past, and I'm really embracing podcasting to a whole new level. I discovered, so I think human design, I'm not an expert in human design. I admire anybody who is, and I value the information through human design. And what I've discovered about myself is that I'm a generator and I have a totally open throat, which is apparently quite rare. And part of my journey is to be interviewed. And I also love interviewing. So I'm going to be creating my own podcast. And Elizabeth, I'd love
Fantastic.
to have you as one of my first guests. And I'm seeing that the actual podcasting is definitely part of my journey to be interviewed and to express myself and really for the universe to move through me. So I'm trusting in this moment that the people who might be listening live and people who will listen to the recording need to hear certain things. And that, my hope is that they find their way, that I can offer some value. And so that has been a surprise for me because, my first book was on the throat chakra because I struggled with throat chakra issues. And one of them is hiding, not being seen, not speaking your truth, all those things. And now it's one of my greatest joys is to express what wants to be expressed through me. So it was,
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. So Cheryl, as we get ready to close here today, I have two more questions for you. One is if everyone loves hearing all the things that you had to say today about the services you provide, the books that you have, etc., what is the best way for them to reach out and get in touch with you?
the best way is to go on my website, starofdivinelight.com. You will find me. There'll be a little pop-up on my ACE method on how you can become your own energy worker, heal and become empowered. And really, if you want to chat with me, learn more, just book a discovery call. That is free of charge. The other thing that I offer on there is a chakra reading, they're so informative. I can see the energy of your being in many ways, and I can let you know what your superpowers are, how to use those to help yourself grow, what your blocks are, and what you can do about them. So that's the best way. Just hop on my website, starofdivinelight.com.
I love that. And I would encourage everyone to absolutely do that. And then the final thing is, and Cheryl, I ask every guest the same question. What is one word or a short phrase that you would give as inspiration to other females who are looking, or other women who are looking at starting a business and in growing their business? What would be that word or short phrase?
The word is power.
Mhm.
You are all powerful beyond belief, powerful beyond what you can currently imagine. And you will discover your powerful self if you open up to that through starting a business and continuing on with it.
I love that so much, Cheryl. Thank you so much for sharing that. And is there anything else that we didn't discuss today that you want to make sure to pass along to our listeners?
Um, to really, like Susan Jeffers says, feel the fear and do it anyway. I encourage you, let yourself feel any fear. It's normal and get used to it. Wouldn't you say, Elizabeth, that fear keeps coming up? It's going to happen if you're growing. Get used to feeling it, and you can do this.
Yeah, absolutely. Cheryl, thank you so much for sharing your story, all of your successes, and really just your inspiration to all of our listeners. Thank you also to everyone who has been listening and joined us today on the Spark Starter podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure bringing you the uniquely inspiring stories that ignite female entrepreneurs into action. I've been your host, Elizabeth Goede, and on behalf of all the awe-inspiring women entrepreneurs out there, I encourage you to not only dream big, but to ignite those dreams into action. Remember, every spark can lead to an extraordinary fire. So keep the spark alive for today, tomorrow, and the vibrant future beyond. And don't forget to subscribe to our podcast to never miss a spark. Until next time, stay ignited.